And we're back with all the guests. Okay, I have a few questions for all of you, and I'm hoping the audience might have some questions as well. Yeah, but the first one, I actually want to pick up on something I wanted to ask you, which I cannot remember what it is now. Oh yeah, do you feel, here we go. Do you feel like you're giving back? What's your role as an artist in the community?
I mean, I do a lot of work with, my wife and I have a children's arts charity called the House of Fairy Tales. And we do a lot of socially engaged projects with children, trying to kind of work with art to help children to sustain their imagination, creativity. I mean, I think that children are imaginative and creative naturally. I think that what happens is that they go through an education which tends to blinker and tends to kind of make them go into a kind of converge. And so much of our project is about trying to use art to expand children's ability to tell stories, articulate their surroundings, their world, themselves, to be able to allow them like freedoms of getting to know themselves, to be kind of self-aware. I mean, I think it's quite similar to something we were listening to earlier on. I do also do bits of teaching, which is giving back, and I think the art to a point is giving back. But I would say that art generally is the art I make in the sort of like the world I am is generally a series of self-portraiture. So I would have to kind of like say that it is a little self-indulgent somehow. And I have to confess, I think. And so I hopefully I give back. I mean, for me, art is about communication. And so, there is no, as we were saying earlier on, there is no situation where it's just me in a room on my own. There is always a kind of a discourse, a conversation. And art is making art, and being an artist is part of taking place, taking up a role within an environment. So there is giving and taking all throughout that.
Okay, yeah. So I think I want to ask for all of you is, do you value yourselves more when you're better paid, or do you sometimes
I think one thing I'm really aware of, very conscious of actually, is that women tend to ask for less money and consistently, and I'm quite fortunate that I have some male colleagues who have shared with me the fees that they've asked for lecturing, and so, a little bit like happened with those girls in the club, and said to me, well, you shouldn't be asking for less than this.
300, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Same number.
20 years on, you're still at 300. No, but yeah, so I think it's not that I necessarily value myself more if I'm earning more, but I don't want to undervalue myself either, and I think that's really important.
I think it depends on the context. It depends what environment it is in, whether, if it's a commercial environment or who is commissioning the work, for example. It's very different, because for the same work, if it was commissioned by a bigger institution that has got no kind of money, money is not a problem, then it would be a different answer to if it's a small charity that kind of is unfunded practically. So I think those things are all relative. I don't think there is. But what's very interesting is what I've never come across actually in relation to money and kind of putting value to how much you value your time. So I'm involved in a project with an international artist who works in a social engaged practice. I can't talk about the project because it's confidential at this state, but she posed this question: how much do you want to pay yourselves? Because there is a pot of money available, and how much do you want to pay yourselves out of this pot? And then how do you start even to address that question? Is it who needs it more? Is it who kind of, are we on to some sort of charity, sort of what are the motivations behind? Do I want to give it up? Why, what would be the, it's, yeah. So I think that's for me actually a really interesting question. And yeah.
I mean, I think also, like, if you're working with people in poverty, like you're always in a position where you're analysing what poverty is, and also like where your input in their lives receives and achieves value, like in relationship to like how people live and what people expect from life. I think it is a. I mean, I certainly don't think that there is an equivalence with. I mean, it comes back to what we were talking about before, like great art, like being valuable. I mean, I do remember at one point receiving an envelope which had £600 in it from a collector who actually didn't want to buy my work, but they wanted to support me because they thought my project was interesting. But I found it so strange because suddenly I was given some money for nothing, and actually, like, I just found it really difficult. I spent the money really badly because I just didn't really understand it. And I think it comes back to something you were saying a bit earlier on. It's like, unless there is a sort of, it's a bit like winning the lottery, and it's a bit like if you won the lottery, you end up having to go and live in a special place where other lottery winners live, because you have to go and get psychiatry because you go a bit crazy, because suddenly like all your friends like look at you with those funny eyes, and you can't trust them anymore, and all they look at you for is whether they can get some money off you, and and somehow that I think that the money element is interesting. I think we've skewed your thing, because when we started our discussion, we were trying to feel it's okay to make money, and somehow
okay?
and somehow having money breeds success, and success will I think
it's in traps, isn't it?
I didn't think
what I was struck by, what you were saying earlier, is you've got the studio and I think you couldn't really answer. And I could go, but actually you couldn't go back to nothing.
No.
Because you've got the system. You said, I am in a system. Yeah. I need to support the system. Yeah. And it might not make you enjoy it, because there are responsibilities. And some people take that easier than others. But for some, that's really damaging.
And your generation, I think, Gavin's particularly brought back that notion of the artist, going back to Rubens's day, where the artist, why can't the artist be a business person and be successful and still have their integrity as an artist? Why do they have to be the 19th century starving in the garret artist to be thought of as authentic? So there's that.
I don't think that's what the show is about.
What did we start with, though? What was our original?
No, it was about valuing your work even if you don't make money and you're not popular. Okay. Like if it was just one person here, I would have gone on with the show. Yeah. Regardless.
No, but when you did your opening gambit, when you were the judge, what did you say?
The whole thing? I said a lot.
I don't know. No, not your.
I said
when you did
we're going to cure ourselves of our money shame.
Money shame.
Oh, your money shame is different from my money shame.
Oh, your money shame is different from my money shame. I like that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So oh my goodness, you misunderstood the premise. What was that I said about misunderstanding?
It's great art.
Yo show, it's great art.
Yes.
You heard it here. So, yeah. No, it was about valuing ourselves. It was about the question I asked to Eva about what, yes, the people in the roles we play, they call themselves experts in poverty, and they're activists, and they're doing things. So yeah, I'm wondering, how do you value yourself without anything to hold on to as like, oh, I do this, Yeah, I do this thing that people pay attention to, or that cares for people, or that, people like, or people pay money for. Like, what if you don't have any of those things?
But like you said, what else would you be doing? It's like you said, you're making up because you'd be more miserable if you weren't making it.
But it's all
Really?
about
That's what
that's
we
true.
decided. Isn't
That's
it?
about
definitely true.
self-understanding, isn't it?
Yeah.
And hopefully, with time, you understand yourself more. And maybe that's why you're working this way. Maybe that's why you're a banker or a bread maker. I mean, it's kind of a form of trying to figure it out. And that's, there's some altruism in that. I mean, we've all got egos, right? And we're all trying to figure something out. So it's not, I think there's, for me, that's the, question.
Oh yeah, does anyone from the audience have a question?
Given the gender kind of power roles and value of like sex work, I mean, of course there's exceptions, but most of the workers are female, most of the clients are male in a very generic, broad spectrum. The kind of luxury of the male dynamic of, oh, I'm gonna have this me time, this fantasy time, because I'm the breadwinner and I deserve, you know what I mean? Like I can actually afford to even have that. Do you think with the rise of the more equal and possibly even more financially independent, if not greater amount of females in the world, this is so complex because female sexuality has a value in itself, obviously. Do you know what I mean? Without money involved, it's a power value. Do you think that'll shift later on?
I know, I'm
Do you
really
see what I'm
curious.
saying? You know what I'm going with this?
I'm very curious because I always
I'm just
wondered.
curious too.
I always wondered because given that, if I were in that scenario, would I actually want to pay someone for sex? It's quite interesting, isn't
Like
it?
if it's a lot would have to shift, like not just the money part.
Not
but
just
like,
the money. I think women would probably find something else to spend the money on, quite honestly.
Okay.
I think that, I don't know.
Because there's value
it is
in
very
like,
interesting.
there's financial value and then there's just like exchange value. Like there's like the power of sexuality that a woman holds that you're exchanging for the money. The money's not worth more than the sex versus vice versa.
No, and
there's
also,
still someone that holds a lot of power there. It's kind of equal in a way. Like,
and also, it depends. There's no moral distinction between selling sex for a tenner on the street and selling it for 500 in a hotel room. There's no moral difference, but there's a whole load of difference in terms of to the person receiving the money. And where they've decided at what price they're putting on that. I think. I'm intrigued to know. I think maybe it is shifting a little bit. But then there's a whole other sort of innovations coming in, like sex robots. I was reading today that someone's doing research on the digital culture and how sex workers are represented in video games and how they're never represented as having any agency. Because, for instance, the player, who's usually given a male avatar, etc., is allowed to get a discount because they're too good looking to pay the full price. All this kind of thing that would not happen in the real world, let's say, that is fostering a particular view, again, of sex work.
I just remembered that actually I heard some kind of podcast or something where these very successful Asian businesswomen in like South Korea and Japan, they actually go into these like almost gentlemen's clubs, they're gentlewomen's clubs, and they pay money, but for like literally companionship. Like
yes,
there's no sex
exactly.
involved.
There's no
They
sex.
just want someone to talk to and like listen.
Or to take to a
Okay,
wedding.
so I'm like, so it is shifting, but it's a different kind of.
It's a different function maybe, to annoy their ex-husband, to turn up at a function with. It's very interesting. It's more psychological perhaps.
I have other questions that are just way too
Okay,
take too
great.
long, so.
Thank you for that question. And actually, it leads perfectly into what we're going to be addressing in the next O show, which is all to do with femininity. But that's another thing. So my last question is, how has failure and discontentment changed your life in positive ways? Has it?
Has it?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously, like, if it's changed it in positive ways, you forgot the failure bit. But I mean, I suppose, like, when I left college, I ended up failing my degree and then getting lots of publicity and getting hugely well known for being someone who didn't get their degree. So I suppose that, you know, the education for me really was, you know, you really have to kind of follow your own sense of what you feel to be right, and actually, like, if it turns out that some people don't like it, perhaps that can be converted and you can change that. Actually, maybe is a positive. It can be turned into positive. So it seems that sometimes, like, when you get turned down or something doesn't happen, or there's something that is seemingly at that moment deemed to be a failure, it can actually be turned, and I think with the right kind of mindset, it can be turned into positive, and it can actually be a success.
That just reminds me of Marie-Anne's story about not getting the job at Goldsmiths and then looking for this other
I think thinking, just like you're saying, that, you know, not to perceive things as a massive failure now when things don't work out as you plan, because something else will happen that might be way more interesting than anything you'd planned. I don't know if Eva's got anything.
I'd still be a lawyer, I think.
Should be making money.
You could never give me any money because I'd be a very, very bad lawyer. But
What kind of law did you do?
I did 7 years of law. So I did my BA, which was general, and then I did my MA in international. So my dissertation was international protection of indigenous art.
Wow.
And hated it throughout, so I kind of completely failed ever liking it. And then dropped it, and yeah.
And now you're trying to care for indigenous people all over the place.
I don't know whether I'm trying to care.
Or something.
I think
Try
that's
to record their stories.
The themes are still present. I guess social justice is still kind of in the work.
What I was trying to say in the interview with you, which I completely messed up, was I was trying to say something about how the shame that I feel when, you know, about the reality that I make no money from my art, and I don't think that many people are like coming to see it or care if I continue making it. And that same shame, I feel like it's obviously not the same, but I think it's related to the shame that maybe one of your participants might feel about being, poor. I don't know, is that like too much?
Really complicated.
Is that a bad
It's a
thing
really
to
complicated
compare these two things?
I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of
I
anyone,
know.
But also, I don't think people feel shame that they're poor. I think people feel they feel completely this kind of what's the word?
Disconnected or
from themselves, yeah, and they feel wronged for being judged that that's a wrong thing. Because what does it mean to be poor? I mean, it's the system who creates situations for people because they are poor. It's the media who creates situations that makes it more difficult. Being poor doesn't mean that it's. I mean, what does it mean? But I think what the system makes is, takes children away from people because they're poor.
Mm. But it also, it
keeps them in poverty forever.
Unfortunately, like the media also, it is available to them, so they are able to see. They're able to register their poverty in relationship to it and internalise it, and then there are statistics that mean that that poverty can shorten your life, and and it can impact like seriously into your into your health.
Yeah.
And so I think that almost just coming to terms with it is beginning of. Like having words for it and being able to explain it and being able to articulate it is the beginning of being able to deal with it.
It's all about consciousness. No? Once you're conscious of something, you can start addressing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I read somewhere that the success isn't doesn't predict happiness, but the other way around. Happier people tend to be more successful. But that sounds like I'm blaming.
A lot of successful people are very unhappy.
Yeah,
I can tell you
exactly.
that.
I don't like the quote. I'm just telling you it. Jeez.
A
Okay.
lot of successful people are in rehab because they're so unhappy.
No, I know, that's what I'm
It's
saying. There's
true.
not connection. That's what I'm saying.
Success
There's
is
not
a
a
difficult
connection
thing.
between them that you
I think
expect.
success is a difficult thing to identify exactly what it is.
To define, yeah.
Yes.
To define it.
Yes.
You know.
Yourself as well.
Okay. In closing, we're currently, depressingly, in an age of austerity, which means that precarity prevails. And unfortunately, a lot of us are going to be worse off. What a terrible note to end the show on. Okay. So I wish you all the best of luck in arriving at your own criteria for judging the success of your endeavors, whether it's in compliance or defiance of capitalist values. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with a quotation that warns against the all-American pastime of devaluing people on the basis of their income. It's over here, damn it. I'm going to do it right. Okay, here we go. Okay, it's a quote from Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five. Americans, like human beings everywhere, believe many things that are untrue. Their most destructive untruth is that it's very easy for Americans to make money. They will not acknowledge, in fact, how hard money is to come by. And therefore, those who have no money blame and blame and blame themselves. This inward blame has been a treasure for the rich and powerful, who have had to do less for their poor publicly and privately than any other ruling class since, say, Napoleonic times. Many novelties have come from America. The most startling of these, a thing without precedent, is a mass of undignified poor. They do not love one another because they do not love themselves. So, should we get all loved up, or should we accept each other, our lives, and ourselves unconditionally? Oh my God, that is the last one. And should we acknowledge that happiness is fleeting and it may not come from money or success? Hopefully, along our personal journeys, we can share some joy. Thank you. Thank you to my guests. Thank you for staying for such a long time to hear my closing remarks. Oh, show.
But I think in the UK, because they have because they have the working class, people just button up and get on with it.
It was the O Show, the show with the O. It was the O Show, the show with the O. We talked and talked and talked and talked. Now we're out of time. It was the O Show. It was the O Show.